I sat in Principal Miller's office, watching my wife, Sarah, weave a web of lies so intricate it almost sounded like a medical journal. She was leaning forward, her eyes wide and pleading, explaining to the administration that our 12-year-old son's genetics project wasn't a sign of infidelity, but a rare medical miracle known as chimerism. I looked at the Punnett square on the table, the one our son Leo had filled out with shaky hands and tear-filled eyes, and I realized that the woman I'd loved for 15 years was a complete stranger. She was actually trying to gaslight a room full of educators to keep her secret buried. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how a middle school science project destroyed my world, I have to take you back where the first cracks appeared. On the surface, we were the couple people in our Seattle neighborhood envied. I'm a structural engineer, Sarah is a high-end physical therapist, and Leo is, well, he's the best thing I've ever been a part of. We had the classic craftsman home, a golden retriever named Scout, and a standing date every Friday night at a little bistro called The Foundry. We'd sit in the same booth, order the same bottle of Malbec, and talk about our future. Sarah would always reach across the table, squeeze my hand, and tell me how lucky she was to have built this life with me. The first crack? It was so small I almost missed it. It was Leo's 10th birthday. He'd fallen off his bike and needed a few stitches. When the nurse asked for his blood type for the intake forms, Sarah jumped in before I could even open my mouth. "He's type O," she said, her voice oddly sharp. I remember frowning, thinking back to the day he was born, but she brushed it off, saying she'd seen it on his newborn screenings. I didn't question it. Why would I? She was the medical professional in the family. I just assumed my memory was fuzzy from the exhaustion of new fatherhood. But that sharp tone stayed with me, a tiny splinter in the back of my mind. I should have known then that she wasn't protecting Leo, she was protecting a lie. But what came next was so much worse. Fast forward 2 years. Leo is in 7th grade, and he's obsessed with his honors life science class. Their big semester project was a genetics and heritage portfolio. They had to track eye color, hair texture, and, the kicker, blood types. It started on a Tuesday evening. I was at the kitchen island, helping Leo with his math, when he pulled out a sterile Lancet kit the school had sent home. "Dad, I need your blood type for the Punnett square," he said. "I'm type A positive, kiddo," I said, barely looking up from his equations. He scribbled it down. "And Mom?" "I'm AB," Sarah said, walking in from the garage with a bag of groceries. She didn't even pause. She was perfectly calm. Leo started filling in the boxes. I watched him, proud of how focused he was. But then he stopped, his brow furrowed. He looked at his textbook, then back at his paper, then at Sarah. "Mom, are you sure?" he asked. "Positive, honey. Why?" Leo's voice was small. "Because if you're AB and Dad is A, I can't be type O. The chart says it's impossible. You'd have to pass an A or a B. There's no way for me to have 2 O alleles." The silence that followed was heavy. The air in the kitchen felt like it had been sucked out by a vacuum. Sarah didn't miss a beat. She laughed, a light, airy sound that didn't reach her eyes, and ruffled his hair. "Oh, Leo, those school charts are so simplified. Biology is much more complex than a few boxes. There are mutations, recessive traits. Don't worry about it. Just put down what we told you. Your teacher will understand." If that was all she'd said, I might have let it go, but I saw her hands. She was gripping the edge of the granite countertop so hard her knuckles were white.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The engineer in me, the part of me that needs things to balance, to structurally make sense, was screaming. I waited until Sarah's breathing was deep and rhythmic, then I crept out to the home office. I started searching. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I started with our old medical files. I found Leo's birth records, type O negative. Then I found Sarah's, type AB positive. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the computer screen stinging my eyes. I knew basic biology. 2 people with those blood types cannot produce an O-type child. It's not complex, it's impossible. My heart started to hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. If that was all I found, maybe I could have convinced myself there was a lab error. But then I saw a folder on our shared cloud drive marked Old Portfolio 2011. 2011 was the year Leo was conceived. I opened it. It wasn't a portfolio. It was a collection of scanned letters and photos. Photos of Sarah with a man I didn't recognize, a tall, dark-haired guy she was looking at with a level of raw desire I hadn't seen in years. The letters were worse. They were dated from a conference she'd attended in San Diego. "I wish we didn't have to hide," one read. "I wish this weekend didn't have to end. Tell Mark I'm staying an extra day for training." Mark. That's me. She was using my name in her letters to him as a punchline. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to put my head between my knees. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. The dates on the photos spanned 3 years. I knew exactly what I was going to do, but I had to be patient. I had to be the man she thought I was for just a little bit longer. The next morning, Leo was distraught. He was a perfectionist, and he didn't want to turn in a project that was scientifically wrong. He'd stayed up late reading, and he told me at breakfast, "Dad, Mom is wrong. Mutations don't work like that for ABO groups." Sarah tried to shut him down. "Leo, drop it. It's just a grade." "It's not just a grade, Sarah," I said, my voice cold and steady. "He's right. Let's go talk to the principal. If the curriculum is too simplified, maybe they need to know." The color drained from her face, but she couldn't back down without looking guilty in front of Leo. "Fine," she snapped. "Let's go." I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. I kissed her goodbye, I ate the dinner she cooked. I even watched a movie with her on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder while my skin crawled. She had no idea what was coming. I had spent those 3 days doing more than just waiting. I'd visited a private lab. I'd taken Leo for ice cream and gotten a cheek swab. I'd also contacted a private investigator to pull the social media of the man in the photos, a guy named Julian who lived in San Diego. The meeting was set for Friday afternoon. Principal Miller's office was small, smelling of old floor wax and stale coffee. Leo sat in the corner, looking miserable. Sarah sat next to me, dressed in her best professional blazer, looking like the picture of an aggrieved, high-status mother. "I'm sure there's a simple explanation," Principal Miller said, looking at Leo's project. But Leo is quite upset. He feels his data is being falsified by his own parents' reported blood types. Sarah took a deep breath. This was her moment. She'd clearly spent the last few days Googling. "Principal Miller, I understand the confusion. But as a medical professional, I know that blood typing isn't always the gotcha people think it is. I actually have a rare condition called chimerism. It means I have 2 sets of DNA. My blood says AB, but my reproductive system carries a different set. It's a miracle, really. That's why Leo is type O."
She said it with such conviction, such grace. For a second, I almost admired her. The principal looked impressed, leaning back in his chair. "Well, that certainly is a fascinating explanation, Mrs. Bennett." I let the silence hang for a beat. I watched Sarah's chest rise and fall, her posture relaxed, thinking she'd won. "That is fascinating, Sarah," I said. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. "There's just one problem." I slid a piece of paper across the desk to the principal. "That's a legal, court-admissible DNA test I had performed 2 days ago. It shows a 0% chance that I am Leo's biological father." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Sarah's head snapped toward me, her mouth opening, but no words coming out. Her eyes went wide, darting toward the door, then back to the paper. "And this," I said, sliding a second set of papers over, "is the result of a little digging. This is Julian Vance. He lives in San Diego. I had a courier pick up a discarded water bottle from his trash 2 days ago. We ran a comparison." I looked Sarah dead in the eye. "Leo isn't a medical miracle, Sarah. He's the son of the man you were sleeping with while I was working double shifts to pay for this house. You didn't have chimerism when you were writing those letters to him, did you?" Sarah's composure didn't just crumble, it disintegrated. Her face went from pale to a blotchy, frantic red. Her hands began to shake so violently they rattled the pens on the principal's desk. "Mark, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, her voice cracking. "It was a mistake. I was lonely. You were always working." "You were lonely for 3 years?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper that felt louder than a shout. "You lied to me for over a decade. You let me raise a child while you kept the truth in a hidden folder like a trophy." I looked at Leo. He was staring at his mother with a look of pure, unadulterated horror. That was the hardest part, seeing his world break, but I wasn't going to let him live in a lie. "Mr. Bennett, I think we should," Principal Miller started, looking incredibly uncomfortable. "We're done here," I said, standing up. I looked at Sarah. "The locks are already changed. Your things are in the storage unit we rented last year. The key is in your purse. I've already filed the papers. And Sarah, don't ever use the word miracle again. You're just a liar who got caught by a 7th grade science project." I walked over to Leo and put my hand on his shoulder. "Let's go, son." He didn't hesitate. He stood up and took my hand, leaving Sarah sitting in that office, surrounded by the wreckage of her own making. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Sarah tried to fight for the house, tried to fight for alimony, but the evidence of her long-term deception and the way she tried to manipulate the school system didn't sit well with the judge. She ended up moving back to her parents' place, her reputation in our social circle completely torched. As for me and Leo, Biology didn't make me his father. 15 years of bandaging knees, coaching baseball, and being there for every nightmare did. We still live in the Craftsman house. We still have Sunday pancakes. But now, we don't have to worry about the boxes not adding up. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. I'm just at peace. Sometimes, the truth doesn't just set you free. It builds a foundation that's actually strong enough to stand on. And the best part? Leo got an A+ on that project. Turns out, his data was perfect all along.